What's up, beautiful people? Kevin Bobbick here. For those who don't know, there was an exploration recently led by a pastor named Will Duffy to try to discredit flat earth, aka biblical cosmology. They supposedly went to Antarctica to film a 24-hour sun that somehow was never filmed properly without suspicious edits. Yes, a mysticism practicing, hermeticism promoting, Bible denying heretic of a pastor that says this.
So please, I beg you, we have to stop claiming that the Ten Commandments prohibit lying. That's not true. The Ten Commandments prohibit bearing false witness against your neighbor. Okay. We finally get to my conclusion on the matter of lying and deception, and that is this. After carefully looking at both sides of the debate, and after taking a very deep dive into everything I could possibly find in Scripture regarding lying and deception, I have come to the conclusion that neither lying nor deception are inherently immoral.
This deceitful pastor must have not made it to Psalms 101:7 that states, "He that worketh deceit shall not dwell within my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight." Or he must have not have made it to Revelations 21:8 that states, "But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." Or he must have not have read Proverbs 12:22 that states, "Lying lips are abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight." So, in light of this movement, it's been my honor to edit this video for you. Enjoy.
Most people have no awareness of how easily our behavior and even our identity can be completely taken over. But people are waking up. I spent 20 years in the U.S. military. I'm a behavior expert. I've trained Psyops. I'm the best-selling author in behavioral psychology. I want to show you exactly how to identify what we call engineered reality, or what some people call Psyops. At the end of this, I'm going to give you a tool that's literally going to give you a score out of 100 that shows you how likely something is to be a psyop. Let's do this. So the first thing you need to know is following the FATE model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. This is what triggers the mammalian part of our brain that makes all of our real decisions. The first part is focus. Psyops always aim to hijack your attention with repetition. So with this, pause and ask, why is this message being pushed so aggressively?
They consistently pushed this narrative over the past few months because they understood the importance of a first impression. If someone's first impression of flat earth or biblical cosmology is this final experiment, then of course they are going to disregard it and not take the time to properly and thoroughly research it. It only takes 7 seconds to form a first impression. This movement has been gaining so much momentum that they are willing to do whatever it takes to try to slow it down. Let alone whoever orchestrated this must have also known the psychology behind a lasting impression.
Cognitively speaking, what we say at CIA is your last impression is the impression that lasts.
The second part here is authority. Trusted figures might shift their tone or positions unnaturally to support the narrative.
We'll now turn it over to the flat earthers. So obviously you all know Jaron Campanella of Jaronism, one of the most popular flat earth YouTube channels.
Not for long. All right, guys. Sometimes you are wrong in life. And I thought that there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it. Kept saying it was true. I kept saying it wasn't. It's a fact. The sun does circle you in the south. That the sun does exactly what these guys said as far as circles the southern continent. So I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe there is.
They're holding guns on the other side of this camera. This is all stage. This is all stage. I mean, I was one of the people that said I definitely didn't think that there was a 24-hour sun. We were wrong. It is doing what they said it would do. Truth doesn't fear investigation. Truth doesn't fear investigation.
So watch very closely for expert panelists or endorsements where authority figures might speak outside of their expertise. Pay close attention to that one. Then we have tribe. So messages that polarize opinions or create stark in-groups versus out-groups or exploit our tribal instincts. For example, labeling groups as patriots versus traitors or scientific versus deniers. Be very careful when you hear that language. Finally, we have emotion. So be wary of any communication that triggers strong emotions like fear, hope, or outrage without any clear, verifiable evidence. So emotional responses suppress critical thinking.
At the same time, but from a stationary standpoint in relation to other stationary standpoints, parallax should still show up.
Okay, first of all, it does. Like if I pull my footage back up right now, as I turn it around, the relative positioning of the items absolutely changes. Have you interacted with the video? I'll share it. Secondly, it is obviously different if the camera's physically moving around. And dude, this is the thing, bro. You can just come and interact with it. And I don't understand. It's kind of annoying. But here, we'll just show it.
Emotional responses suppress critical thinking. So as a tip here, analyze the evidence that's presented to you. If facts are replaced by appeals to emotion, you need to be very, very cautious.
So if I keep the sun still, that means the camera is rotating and the earth is moving. It's the same thing. So don't let them bamboozle you. So it's the same as if I'm using a camera, a single lens camera, or I'm using a 360 camera and I rotate the footage to keep the sun center. It's the same thing. It's the same for both. So here's the point. If there is a South Pole with a 24-hour sun, then there must be extreme parallax shift. We don't see that in their footage because the Earth is not rotating, and if the Earth's not rotating, there cannot be a South Pole. So they're lying to you. So don't think they went there and, oh, it was a sunny day, that they were lucky. No, because it'd be hard to fake that. So let's look at the footage. Right. So the claim here is that it's a 360 camera. The camera must be turning because the Earth is turning. And I can see the camera's moving because the Earth is turning. If I've got a rotating platform, I put a spirit level and I put a cup. The cup must have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So if the Earth is turning, what would my camera see? So remember, even if you're using a 360 camera, I just, in my NLE, isolate the sun and keep the sun standing still. Well, the spirit level can't bend around me. The spirit level must turn, rotate like this. You'll see one side of the spirit level, then you'll see the other side of the spirit level. You see one side of the robot, then you see the other side of the robot. The same with the spirit level in the cup. You must see the left side and the right side because it must rotate, because the Earth is supposed to be rotating. Right, so we're looking at parallax shift. So let's put it into perspective. Remember, the camera, if I'm rotating the camera or I'm rotating the footage, it's the same thing. Things are in their relative position and distances from the center of the camera. So you must see parallax shift, and things can't bend around you. Right, as we see in the footage. Things will move at different speeds. And the table can't bend. Mountains can't bend around you. They must keep their same. North and south and east and west must be the same. So you see this bending? It's because they're using a psych.
Next, question novelty. Our brains are wired to focus on sudden or unusual changes because they signal potential threats or opportunities. And this is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Psyops exploit this by creating events that break normal expectations.
You really want to believe that YouTube shills went to Antarctica and got a 24-hour sun on video when there's no government agency that has ever recorded a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, and there's government bases down there for over 100 years, some of them? You really want to believe that YouTube shills got a 24-hour sun recorded in 2024 as flat Earth is exploding, and there's no 24-hour sun videos from any university or any scientist or any astrophysicist? There's a few random ones starting, I think, around the year 2017, but no 24-hour sun videos from 2010 or 2005 or the 1990s. There's no other 24-hour sun videos in Antarctica, but we're supposed to believe that YouTube shills got a video of a 24-hour sun in Antarctica in 2024. That defies all reason, all logic, all common sense.
So ask yourself, why is this new? So consider if the event or somebody's message has been artificially manufactured or timed. Look for patterns like sudden shifts in public opinion, trending hashtags that are unusual, or viral videos that seem very coincidental. The timing shifts public focus. All of this is part of the NCI system I developed for teaching tradecraft and extreme psychological operations. And there's even a gigantic textbook for all of this stuff in the description. Definitely not for everybody, but it's definitely the most comprehensive guide in the world on this stuff. So next item, look for multiple sources. Centralized narratives create an echo chamber, and they silence dissent and they narrow perspectives. For example, if all media outlets present identical talking points, it is a humongous red flag. So actively seek out contrarian or independent voices, even if they challenge something that's already in your head. So in reality, an example, all the major news outlets report on the exact same study, but independent researchers revealed the study was funded by a company selling the solution. So watch for that group speak. Next is identify cognitive dissonance weapons. Let's talk about how this works. So cognitive dissonance comes up when new information clashes with our identity or our beliefs. So psyops exploit the hell out of this by including micro-agreements. Micro-agreements are little, small, seemingly harmless concessions to shape your identity. And over time, you're going to unconsciously align your behavior to reduce that internal conflict. And as a weaponization example of this, a psyop might present you as a part of moral or intelligent enlightenment, like only good citizens do XYZ. If you disagree with that, you risk some identity conflict there. So reflect on your identity and ask, am I being nudged to identify with some other group?
You can Google or YouTube the final experiment, and it's easy to tell you are being fed one side of the story. Remember, once you decide on a subject, it can take a long time and a lot of information to rethink it. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. Mark Twain.
So be very careful of any campaigns that are asking for seemingly minor commitments. As an example of this, let's say a company launches an ad campaign and they claim real patriots buy local. If you disagree with their product, it feels like rejecting your identity as a patriot. So this pushes you to conform. Be very, very skeptical about those identity statements. Next is looking for those emotional scripts. And what I mean by this is the scripts that were written in our brains by our ancestors. So manipulated narratives trigger instincts.
Round, lad, round, lad, round, lad, round. Columbo, the world she's flat. The world she's around. She's flat. Look, King, she's around like the apple. She's flat like the pancake. Posta fazoon. She's around, she's a firm, she's a fully packed. She's around like my head. She's flat like your head. tortone. Yeah. What's up, Docs? I'm a disgust. Nobody believes in the world that she's around. Yeah, she looks around to me, Doc.
Oh, boys, come here.
A queen is a bella.
If you can prove the world is round, Chris, I'll give you my jewels.
You have tribal rejection. These are threats of being socially outcast, like you're selfish if you don't comply. And those things override logic every time. And as a tip for this, break the script by focusing on the facts. Like, what's the likelihood of this scenario? So compare the claims with other sources.
If the 24-hour sun existed in Antarctica, then it would be reasonable to assume that north-facing shadows should be found with some images taken during the Antarctic summer. Come to find out, the vast majority, if not all of Google Earth's images of Antarctica were taken during its summer. That is great news for shadow research. It will depend on the time of day the footage was taken, but if we look over all of Antarctica and find no north-facing shadows, then that is some strong evidence for no 24-hour sun. Remember that what we call satellites operate at all times of the day. A certain percentage of shadows must be facing north. Then if a 24-hour sun actually existed, let's find out. Pay attention to the compass in the upper right corner and the imagery date below.
And again, this is at, like, I noticed it like 51 minutes in to the video, and now at 52 minutes and 6 seconds, it's just obvious that there is a right angle and a blue line that cuts all the way up and across.
This is all stage. This is all stage.
Next is follow the money. So there's a trail of beneficiaries here. So identifying who benefits always is going to reveal the motive.
Okay, 5. Yeah, no, let's do it. I'm very interested. I'm here for this, actually.
Okay. How much are you getting paid?
Well, how much am I getting paid?
Yeah.
Listen, wait, don't answer that, Jonathan. Don't answer that.
Yeah.
Will Duffy, Jonathan needs to get paid for his time. Will hired him. Okay? We could hire somebody. So I'm going to stand up for Will on that one. He hired him.
So look for funding sources like sponsorships or political connections that are tied to the narrative.
At Amazon Studios, we think big. And that's why we've invested in the newest technologies, expanding our creative possibilities and offering our filmmakers an experience like no other. Introducing Amazon Studios Virtual Production.
We ourselves are the filmmakers, so we're trying to make a safe place for storytellers to be ambitious.
Bigger than traditional walls that have been built in the past, just so we're able to encompass full world building shows.
There's such a wonderful realism that's created with virtual production. The ability to experiment with it on this piece felt really fitting.
It definitely gives the ability for filmmakers to be able to visualize and utilize different locations within the same stage. There are so many aspects of it as we shoot different content for different shows. We could have a setup in the morning of one environment, have foreground set pieces. Shoot all that, and then after wrap, be able to swap out all the foreground set pieces, switch out the background, and shoot a totally different environment the next morning. It could be a whole different part of the world.
This type of filmmaking tool makes location shooting around the world accessible to budgets big and small.
Next, and this one is very important, is analyze the context boundary. The mechanism here is context, and context defines what is permissible. So manipulative people shift contexts to normalize extreme behavior.
On Yah, I swear on everything that I went to Antarctica and that I did not lie to Antarctica.
He looks to the right. He's lying. And he also doesn't say that I swear I saw a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, so that's interesting.
So ask, what is the context? Compare some similar events in different settings to see if the rules or responses seem disproportionate. Look for contradiction. Compare some similar events in different settings to see if the rules or responses seem disproportionate. Look for contradictions. So for lots of the students who are brand new to NCI University, this right here is the most massive realization when they realize that the ability to weaponize cognitive dissonance and then shift the context can get anyone to do almost anything. This changes the context to make previously unacceptable actions seem absolutely necessary. Next, spot the use of archetypes because they're woven into our brains. Psyops simplify narratives by using archetypes like heroes and villains and saviors to deconstruct the story. Ask, who are the characters and what roles are they playing?
In making a documentary, I'm the filmmaker in the group. I'm a flat earther as well. It's hard to say what I think these days, but I'll tell you this, the AE map seems to be inaccurate. I think some of the things with the flat earth now give me reason to investigate a little different. You know, when you see the sun circle around you, it's pretty clear just based on where we are that it couldn't be happening where the rest of the planet is getting day and night every day as they do, with the exception of the North Pole, but that's for the same reason that down here in the South Pole we're getting this 24-hour sunlight.
That doesn't make any sense. You've been a flat earther for 8 or 9 years, and you just said we go to space? Another red flag, bro.
Okay, well, excuse my my grammar, but my thoughts were send us up in a ship as high as it'll go with one of these ships, and like obviously if they don't send us in a ship high enough, oh, there's an issue. If they do send us, what will we see?
Jonathan's a real flat earther.
Simplistic, like good versus evil stories usually signal manipulation just about every time. So always seek nuance there.
The final experiment is about the fact that a 24-hour sun in Antarctica does not work on a flat Earth. It's not possible on a flat Earth, and it's obviously what the globe says happens.
And the narrative ignores their mistakes and oversimplifies the conflict to prevent a lot of scrutiny.
Now, what is Vapegate, you might ask? Well, one comment that kept cropping up during people's live streams was the lack of visible breath, with conspiracy theorists arguing that this was somehow proof that we weren't outside in a cold environment, but instead we must be in a studio somewhere. Then, during Austin Whitsett's live stream, he'd already been asked a few times about breath, and was then asked to pick up some snow. So he went back into the hut off camera to go and get his gloves. And when he came back onto camera, he then produced 2 visible breaths, which then stopped again. And what I'm seeing from that is thick, foggy breath being exhaled as he exits the hut, then clearly holding what appears to be a vape pen to his mouth for quite a while as he's walking back, then putting something in his pocket, and then blowing thick fog from his mouth before getting back to the computer, which to me personally seems to fit the argument of him vaping.
I live in Florida, bro, where it's warm, humid, and close to sea level. This was a complete flip on its head for me. I literally got sick. Okay, now what I want you to actually address, though, is I'm telling you, factually, I did not hit a vape, walk over to the camera, and exhale a vape.
The first time I was asked if I vaped in Antarctica, I said yes. Yes, I vaped.
I'm telling you, factually, I did not hit a vape.
Yes, I vaped. I used to vape. I quit vaping. I found a vape in my bag. Everyone claiming that's a lie. I guess I can see why that's coincidental or whatever, but
the more words you use, the less believable you sound. The more words it takes to tell the truth, the farther it looks from.
I found an old vape and I hid it because I wasn't at home, right? So like I wouldn't vape around my children, you know, like I wasn't going to smoke when I had children or whatever. I also had a cigarette there. I hate cigarettes. I think they smell terrible. Would never smoke around my children, etc. So the idea that I was away from my house is the only reason I would be vaping or smoking a cigarette, okay? I never lied about hitting a vape.
I'm telling you, factually, I did not hit a vape.
Yes, I vaped. What I said and still say to this day, which is just the truth, is that I did not hit a vape and then walk over to the camera to try to fake my breath.
Less is more. When you over-explain, it's because you have this fear that they're not going to believe you. So you give more detail in hopes that they believe that you're telling the truth or believe you know what you're talking about.
So like if you actually look at the video real closely, you'll see every time I hit a vape, I'm trying to hide it from the camera. And that's because I would never vape on camera.
But the more words
so anyway,
you use, the less believable you sound. The more words it takes to tell the truth, the farther it looks from.
I hit a vape, I walk over there, I exhale out away from the camera. Like I turn my head away from the camera and everything, try to get another exhale out, and then
is
I walk
more.
over there talking.
When you over-explain, it's because you have this fear that they're not going to believe you. So you give more detail in hopes that they believe that you're telling the truth or believe you know what you're talking about.
Hot water, because if you want it to be cold, you just throw snow in there. Like the water just comes from the snow anyway, right? So when you drink hot water and you walk outside, you see your breath more. And it takes like a couple minutes so you don't really see your breath. So I just assumed that that's what my breath was from, which is why I said, "What's up now?" and took 2 deep breaths after that, thinking you'd keep seeing it, and you didn't. Why isn't your breath foggy? It's not as foggy as it was a second ago. It's kind of foggy right now. But right before I started the stream, I tested it, so I knew you guys were going to say that. And my breath was like super foggy earlier, but it's not really foggy right now. I don't know. There's a little breath. What's up now? You have to take like deeper breaths, and it sucks. It hurts your lungs.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap. No.
But Marty, you wanted to bring up some points about what we care about and what we're saying and what we mean here.
Yeah, so let's just go on the list right away. Okay, so are we proclaiming without question that they faked the 24-hour sun? As of right now, I'm leaning very strongly yes, and I think Dave is pretty much there too. But there are other possibilities. Do we still have to take into consideration that there could be a rational, reasonable explanation for there is a 24-hour sun down there, and there's a reasonable explanation in our flat Earth model because of optics, dome, that sort of thing? Yes, that's still a possibility as well. But do we believe that this avenue should be specifically looked at? Yes. And once you start looking at this avenue, I think the rest of them are going to fall off, and you're going to start to see that this actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Next, evaluate the frame. So let's do a step-by-step evaluation here. First one is expectation. What are you expected to believe or do based on this thing that you're exposed to in the media? Next is belief. What assumptions are being made about you, like your values or your fears? Then we have perception. So how is reality being shaped, like selective facts or missing contexts? And definition is the final step here when it comes to a frame. What truth is being asserted as something that's completely unchallengeable?
They expect to get you to believe in a perception to accept this fallacy of a reality so they can control your mind more easily. When someone is sucked out of their skull so far beyond comprehension that they can't trust their own senses, you can imagine how easily manipulated they are when it comes to other deceptions. I do not know of one seasoned flat earther who fell for the pandemic and actually got injected with.
This comes up with information suppression. So really look for topics that are being avoided, critics that are being silenced. If somebody needs to be silenced in order for an idea to make it, then the idea is not good. So alternative viewpoints being discredited, that's a big one to look out for.
You can actually take the same link from your YouTube video and post it on the RTS platform, and it'll lift the shadow banning. Sometimes YouTube will only show less than 1% of the views that are actually being viewed. This is a good example here of one of my videos where it shows 419 views, but somehow 3,000 likes. I've literally caught them sabotaging my views.
In terms of conspiracy theory content generally, our goal is to promote authoritative content to our users. So we have two principles that guide the way here. That's the first one, is we want to provide users with authoritative, trustworthy information.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I only have a minute and a half, and I don't really need to hear what you're trying to provide. I want to know how you're dealing with all these conspiracy theorists on your platform.
So the first way is by demoting low-quality content and promoting more authoritative content, and the second is by providing more transparency for users. So we're introducing boxes that provide factual information at the top of results that have shown themselves to turn up a lot of information that is counterfactual, such as searching for the Earth is flat on YouTube, where you see a lot of
Your response is to put a box saying, nope, the Earth is not flat.
Correct.
Okay. So cross-check timelines of events and notice if critics are labeled conspiracists or if algorithms are suppressing some kind of specific search, and this is a big one, especially in today's time.
This should go without saying, but I will go ahead and say it anyway. Whenever you Google flat Earth, all of the information is completely one-sided. It's either misinformation, a strawman fallacy, controlled opposition, or information that's steering you away from flat Earth. It's not giving you any credible content from a real flat earther's perspective. Why isn't there better content like True Earth Wiki that comes up where you can look up whatever you want regarding flat Earth that will give you a credible resource? It's because they are hiding the truth from you. That should be very easy to understand.
So next, be alert to rapid compliance shifts. This one is scary and it's happening every day. Psyops create urgency to drive rapid compliance. And these tactics are stuff like emotional appeals, staged group behaviors, or false consensus. For this, it's really important to slow down and resist the pressure to act, to question the conformity as much as possible, and test the message, engaging the skeptics there.
Then we have this controlled opposition named Robbie Davidson, who is now coming out on his Facebook saying that he is going back to the globe. If that is not a rapid compliance shift, I don't know what is.
Study the timing of the events, and this one's huge, especially right now. Timing is everything. Ask yourself, why is this happening now? So what other events or scandals might this thing be distracting everybody from? So look for very coincidental timing with unrelated major news stories or political movements. Psyops can very often be smoke screens.
Ironically, right after the final experiment is finished and all the information starts blowing up, LA starts burning down to the point where only some of the trees burned, but somehow was melting aluminum down to a liquid.
Coincidence? Probably not. The next thing I want you to do is to sharpen your brain to start hearing and understanding these manipulation tactics. And one of the biggest things that you can do, the most effective way that I could train you right now, just you and me, is to teach your brain to recognize logical fallacies. So let's go through these, because psyops very often use these flawed arguments to convince people. And if you know how to spot them, it makes you a lot harder to manipulate. Let me give you 10 of these so that your brain gets hardwired to start seeing everything a whole lot differently. So the first one that you're going to see all the time, appeal to emotion. So this uses fear and anger and hope to bypass logic.
This exodus will continue until a flat earther can show how TFE's experiments and observations can work on a flat earth. But instead of doing this, the flat earth community as a whole is taking the position that we did not actually go to Antarctica, or that we did not see the real sun, or that there is no 24-hour sun in Antarctica, despite the fact that we all witnessed it with our own eyes. They are arguing that we were in a giant studio filled with LED screens, or that the sun was created with a giant laser pointer to fool us.
No one ever said that.
Next is the straw man argument. This misrepresents somebody's argument so they can attack it better.
Don't let anybody trick you that flat Earth is a flat disk in outer space.
So somebody might say they oppose the lockdowns because they don't care about lives. Think about that one. Number 3 is the bandwagon fallacy. So this claims that something is true because everyone supports it. And this is, you hear this all the time. Millions of people agree with X, Y, and Z. You should agree with it too.
I had asked you to debate one of them flat earth guys.
No, I don't. I can't. No.
I know. We talked about it, and we were going to have him on Skype.
No, that is something that should not be debated. Does not belong in front of an audience getting debated.
Only 64% are convinced that the world is a ball. The world is a circle. That the world is a, what is it, a spheroid? Only 64% are convinced that the world is a ball.
Please don't cry like that. Please don't, Brennan.
Number 4 is the false dilemma. This presents only 2 extreme options, and it ignores alternatives. So it's the either you're with us or you're against us fallacy there.
It doesn't matter when there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. If there is, that falsifies flat Earth, and it confirms the globe.
Number 5 is the ad hominem attacks. This is the attack of the person and not the argument. Be very observant for this. So this is when you hear you can't trust her. She's not a scientist. You can't do X because they're not qualified based on X. Ad hominem is very common, and I want your brain to be able to spot it.
Why do people think the Earth is flat? The Earth is clearly round, right? That's why we have the horizon, time zone, seasons, day and night cycle. We f***ing seen it from space. We know more about the curvature of the Earth than the vast majority of things in our world. So how can someone get confused about the shape of the Earth? Well, the answer is actually more annoying than you'd think. Flat Earthers aren't coming to the conclusion that the Earth is flat the same way we came to understand that the Earth is round. Scientific experiments, general observations, and mathematical equations all prove to us that the Earth was round. But Flat Earthers' belief isn't based on evidence, it's based on distrust. They believe that people in power are lying to them, that experts are full of shit. There is no actual evidence that proves the Earth is flat. The whole conspiracy is based solely on the distrust of authority. That's it. And hey, I told you the answer was annoying.
Number 6 is appeal to authority. And this is a claim that something is true because an authority figure said so. So like Dr. X supports it, so it's absolutely right. You have to trust the science.
We should speak of seeking evidence that disfavors the hypothesis that the Earth is flat, of which there is plenty, starting with the historical evidence about how stellar constellations shift if you travel, how the length of shadows changes, to Newton's 1/r² force law, that is the law for a sphere, not a disk, not to mention Einstein and gravitational redshift and the perihelion precession of Mercury, and so on and so forth. The problem that flat earthers have is that they cannot do most of these observations themselves. So if you buy the idea that it's only your personally collected evidence that you should accept, then it seems you cannot refute the idea that the Earth is flat.
Number 7 is the slippery slope. These are claims that one action is going to lead to some extreme negative outcome. So you've heard this before. Somebody says something like, if we allow this, we're going to lose all of our freedoms. All of our freedoms are gone. The country is gone. All of that kind of talk like that. Be very attuned to when you hear that and very cautious when you hear that.
If you do not think about your sensory input, if you do not properly decode it, you arrive at the wrong conclusion. Flat earthers similarly arrive at the wrong conclusion by failing to decode evidence, indeed by simply ignoring a lot of evidence that their own senses deliver. This is evidence about how society and how science works. Whether we are scientists or not, we all constantly use this evidence to navigate life, and I'm sure flat earthers are no exception.
Number 8, hasty generalizations. And these are broad claims that are made with very little evidence. So the example is, 2 politicians lied, so all of them must be corrupt. So giant claim, tiny bit of evidence. 2 politicians might have lied, so they're all corrupt.
These controlled opposition's accusations do not speak for the entire Flat Earth community. You don't have to be a Jack Parsons to figure that one out.
Number 9 is huge. It's the red herring. So this distracts people with irrelevant information. You've heard this maybe as an example when somebody says, why are we worrying about climate change when we have so much crime going on right now? It's an argument of distraction. Number 10 is false equivalence.
All right, so anybody can go to these 2 websites, or any website really, and check out the AI detection software. This first one, I uploaded the video from McKeegan's, the first one that was uploaded, and it took like 8 still shots or whatever. Came back as multiple fake indicators, shows you the image manipulation. That 39% of it is manipulated, so they probably use some fake, some real. Here's this footage, or this picture, coming back as being AI, or not, or maybe computer generated, not necessarily AI, but tampered with. Same with this one. There's dozens of them that I put in here. I took a picture from my window to show what it looks like a real picture, just for as like a comparison. And obviously that came back with the green saying it's fine. So here's another one that's like the little tents from Jaren's chest cam footage. Got quite a bit of Jaren's chest cam footage that's fake. This one actually said that it looked legit, but then I noticed it looked like I didn't see a sun, I just saw the mountains there. So then I decided to crop, just zoom in, take the picture, just cropped out the sun, as you can see here, put that in, and all of a sudden, bam, computer generated modified image.
That's a very damaging wound. I know there's a lot of information here, so I want to give you access to the actual tool that we use to identify psyops that even rates the likelihood on a 1 to 100 scale. And I'm going to add that into the description right below this video. But keep this in mind. Throughout history, the people who stood tallest in the storm were not the ones who knew all the answers. They were the ones who asked the right questions. They weren't the loudest voices. They were the calmest. They were the people that had composure. Thanks for spending some time with me. One love.
I hope that was easier to watch than it was to edit. Now, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I'm going to ask you to share this video. I'm obviously not doing it for the views. I'm doing this to get the truth out. This is deceiving some people, and they do need to see the light. So, to all the deceivers out there, let this be a message from the real Flat Earth community. You cannot pull a stunt like this without us honest researchers picking it apart. This movement is not being stopped, let alone slowed down. You are fighting against God's creation. You're at a lost cause. The truth will always prevail.